to be clear about is that I do anticipate that we may have some class sizes that may be a little bit bigger than what we've been running the past 3 or 4 years. What we're not going to do is compromise the instructional environment, so we're not looking at anything ridiculous like a class of 40 students or even a class of 32 students. But typically, over the last 3 years, we've tried to run lower numbers at the lower levels, in the low 20s, and then those slightly increasing as you get up to upper elementary. And then the high school really is a whole different animal because it's dependent on student enrollment, and they offer so many classes. So we were able to estimate an approximate savings of $150,000 in terms of positions we wouldn't replace. Again, this is an estimate, so this number could be going up or down depending on what happens over the course of the summer with student enrollment. And here's a point where I'm going to plug kindergarten registration. Our kindergarten registration has really been down this year, and no doubt that has a lot to do with what's been going on. But really encourage our families to register for kindergarten, because those are some of the big enrollment numbers that we're really waiting for. In addition, we've been able to shift some positions within departments and reduce positions. The shifting, we need one less Spanish teacher at the high school due to French being added. Naturally, with an additional foreign language, they've absorbed some of the students who in the past may have taken Spanish. And the other big one that I wanted to mention is teaming. We were slated to implement teaming at both our middle schools next school year. We are still planning to do that down the road. But for now, we're going to press pause on that because it means adding 4 full-time employees. So we're going to get a cost savings on that for this upcoming school year. The last piece, and I think this is the piece where I've gotten the most questions from staff when we review this with staff, is grant funding for prevention staff. Our prevention coordinators are located at our middle schools as well as our high school. In addition, this funding can be utilized for programming as well as for some safety and security measures at the buildings. And this is a grant that we applied for and we received. And the reason why we've included it in this chart is because this money had been budgeted into our 5-year forecast and wasn't yet pulled out. So this is a savings to our 5-year forecast. So we're not looking at reducing any positions in terms of our prevention coordinators or safety. We highly value those positions. We're just shifting out of the general fund in terms of how those employees are going to be paid. The next piece is instruction and special education. And I can tell you, these were some pretty difficult pills to swallow. I think you all are I know you all are well aware, and our community is as well, how we've had such a heavy focus in terms of academics since we've implemented our strategic plan. And then to go back and have to put pause on some of these items, and this does impact our strategic plan and some of the goals that we have moving forward. But again, the plan is that this is a pause for a year and things are going to snap back. The first one is Blackboard, which is a $50,000 savings. We used to use Blackboard across the district. We have slowly been backing away from Blackboard and going to Google Classroom as our academic board. We are moving up the Blackboard removal from the upper grade levels. It was slated not to happen for another year or two. We have decided to move forward with that next year, seeing as how we were heading that direction anyways, and it was a $50,000 savings for the district. Blackboard is still going to be available for our teachers on the back end because they have a lot of information they store there, and we want to make sure they have a year where they can transfer those lesson plans and the information they have on there. But it's still a $50,000 savings heading into next year that was budgeted. And we were at one time paying somewhere around $130,000 to $140,000 for Blackboard. So that's been a cut we've been making over the course of the last several years. The other thing is the curriculum department has decided to press pause on some of our textbook adoptions that were supposed to be coming up with English language arts, as well as some of the middle school electives. I know many of the middle school electives have to do with the teaming and some of the new classes that we were going to be adding with teaming, that since we're not moving forward with teaming next year, we don't need to buy those academic materials. The next two items we are still having some conversation about, and that's the portrait of a graduate, as well as our relationship with Battelle. We did already have a contract with Portrait of a Graduate, and we have paid half that contract. They have started doing work for us, and we're going to continue to work with them to ensure that the first amount of those funds that we've paid are covered. So that's going to allow us to move forward with some steps with the Portrait of a Graduate. But we'll also be monitoring the budget as we head through the school year to see if there's flexibility with that initiative as well. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit later item. But I think some of the things that have been going on in society have kind of sparked some of the importance behind parts of that portrait. The other piece is Battelle. Battelle has been a big academic initiative for us. It's been district-wide. Currently, it has been with administrators. The goal has been to expand that. But it's really been a driving force to our transition to 21st century learning and instruction, and really changing our approach with academics. And it's really helped us to build a framework for being a leading district in the state. And one of the conversations that I've had with Tina Cassidy, our director of curriculum, is we want to have some conversations with Battelle and see if there's some other different capacity we can work with them, and maybe a lower dollar rate, because we really hate to see that work totally put on pause with the kind of progress that we have been making. The other pieces with makerspaces, we had money set aside for makerspaces at all of our buildings. As you know, we implemented them across the district, and we had funds available to stock those makerspaces. We've been very fortunate that we've had a lot of support from outside donations and our PTOs to get those up and running. So we felt comfortable putting that off for one more year and adding more items to that. And the third one is Newhouse Special Ed training. That was scheduled to come up for this school year. That is something that we need to continue to move forward with, but we thought we could put that off for another year. And then the last one is Focus 3. And I know some of our elementary parents may not be as familiar with this. I know our elementary staff is. But this has been a huge initiative district-wide, especially amongst our administrators and our high school. But this has to do with leadership training that we've implemented within the district. And you can see that says half a contract there. This is an initiative that we intend to continue to move forward with the best we can. We're going to have to do more of it internally, but we're looking at canceling the person-to-person in-face trainings that we were planning on having for the upcoming school year. The next category is technology. And technology is a really difficult one to discuss. And it's simply because technology has been such an important piece with the transition to the online learning that we've been doing. And so it's really hard to go and make cuts in that area. I've been really impressed with what our technology department, led by Ryan O'Cole, has done to work within the means of their budget. But I do anticipate that technology is going to be on budget because of the things we're going to need to do. One cost savings that we do have, again, this wasn't yet factored into the 5-year forecast, but next year we're making our full transition over to NeoNet, which provides us with technology support and services. And that is from LACA, and that's a $96,000 savings. And we initially began starting to make that move a couple of years ago, not only to save money, but also to have a service agency that's much closer to us. They're located in Cuyahoga Falls, so it's much easier when we're working with meetings and being involved with the technology center. And then the last area has to do, most of these I think are actually coming out of our communications department. But we have quite a bit of savings with our website and website upgrade. We were slated to do a major refacing of our district website for this coming year, and we're going to hold off on that because it's an easy area to save money. You'll also see as I present my board items for tonight that we do have a contract up there for our current website. And I want to thank Amy Busby for her negotiating and working with Blackboard to pretty drastically lower, even more than I had initially thought, lower that contract and save us some money. And that included negotiations. It also included reviewing features of the website that maybe are deemed non-essential that could save us some money as well. The other one here is no outside printing. We do regularly go outside for some of our major newsletters that we send out to the community. You'll recognize many of these as the magazines or glossy ones. And we're discussing potentially handling those in-house as well. I do anticipate we're still going to have some things we're going to need to go outside for, simply because we want to have a professional document for our community that's well laid out and outside the means that we can do in-house, but we're definitely going to try and do as much in-house as we possibly can. The next one has to do, this is actually a strategic plan item. Part of our strategic plan is to trademark our B as well as our M. And this is to protect the district and provide us with ownership over those symbols. The intent isn't necessarily to block areas from using them, but give us some control over when those symbols that represent our district might be inappropriately used, that we can more easily address that. And a lot of that cost is in attorney fees in working with the government in order to make that happen. Again, that's something I still feel strongly we need to move forward with, but it is something that we can hold off on. And I'm actually looking here now. We've actually very recently had conversation, and we are going to keep the volunteer website in place. We have so many volunteers in the district that software, I think, is going to save us what it costs in terms of personnel hours in developing and monitoring what we used to just do on Google spreadsheets and also make the process easier for the community. So if we look overall, we're at about a 2.4 million savings as of now heading into the upcoming school year, which covers the current 1.5. It doesn't cover all of next year, but like I said, we're going to continue to make decisions and update this chart as we go into next year. I can't emphasize enough for our community as well as for our staff that these pauses that we're doing shouldn't have major impacts on the classroom. That was our goal. It's just going to slow down some of the things that we're moving forward with. And again, this whole picture could totally change once we get into the late fall or winter if we really see a turnaround and we're informed by the state that some monies can be given back. The other reason why we felt the need to really take this serious, besides the loss of money, but we don't know what's going to happen with our sales tax. And we currently do not have a permanent improvement levy. Permanent improvement levies are what most districts utilize to maintain facilities. We rely on our sales tax money to do that. We are anticipating a pretty dramatic drop in those sales tax dollars simply because things have been closed. People haven't been spending money, and which means that we have to shift some money from the general fund potentially to cover some of those costs of things that need to happen. So I wanted to know if there's any questions in regards to this chart or the direction we're looking at going. This is an area where we will continue to communicate in regards to the decisions that we're making. And I'm going to pick up a phrase that we used a couple of years ago, but we are going to continue to move Medina forward. We've made so much great progress over the last several years. We want to keep that train rolling. Maybe it slows down a little bit, but we want to keep that train rolling, and hopefully this is just a bump in the road in what we've been doing. And I think I said this at the last meeting as well. When you're looking at stuff like this, and this is why we're putting so much thought into it, and Medina City Schools has seen this. I've seen this in other districts I've been in. It's very easy to cut programs. It's very hard to bring programs back. Programs can literally be cut in less than a year. And I can tell you, just in my time in the district, we're still working on bringing back programming prior to the major cuts that happened 7 or 8 years ago in the district. So we're trying to be very careful when we look at programmings and adjustments that may or may not happen to those.
Okay. Erin, I have one question under the instruction / special education. You mentioned that Blackboard is cut for the upper grades.
Yes.
Okay, what is going to replace that then? Because I know that that's a communication tool. I know that's like where summer reading is posted. The counselors have their sections up there.
Yep, and I'm glad you brought that up because there's actually more I could have said about the Blackboard. We're going to be utilizing Google Classroom for teachers to be able to post all of that information. That's what we currently do at the lower grade levels. We made that transition at the lower grade levels or began making that transition a couple of years ago. Google Classroom does not cost us money. But this also fits into the surveys that we sent out to our community and our students and our staff. And the feedback that we overwhelmingly got was that it would be very helpful if we were on a single platform instead of operating off of multiple platforms. So our district platform will be Google Classroom. Parents are still going to have the same kind of access that they have now to grades and things like that. Just instead of going through Blackboard, they will go through Progress Book in order to access those. And I'm pretty confident that what they're going to find is they're much more user-friendly platforms, and they're going to have it's going to be much easier for them to get to grades and to find all that information.
Okay. And will you be sending then a summary sheet, like with logins and that type of information, how to access it?
Yep, all the login and access information will be provided, and in a similar fashion to what we've done in the past with Blackboard.
Okay, thank you.
Erin, thank you for that spreadsheet. I think it also just shows the district has been very fiscally responsible over the years, and I know a lot of those projects we have planned as part of our strategic plan that we are pausing. Again, they're still going to happen. They're just on hold for right now. And the fact that we don't have to cut any type of curriculum, I think, says a lot.
Yeah, and I think one major component of that, since you bring it up, is that we made a promise to the community that we go 5 years after this past levy. We really tried hard wherever we could to really be conservative and fiscally responsible with expenditures as we move through the strategic plan. And I think it was just this early spring or late winter that I announced publicly that we were going to be able to extend 1 more year to 6 years in regards to our next levy, and that's what's provided us with that kind of flexibility. And I know we're looking now at how this impacts when that next levy is going to be. I don't know what's going to happen with the extended year that we've been able to save for, but we're still trying hard to maintain that 5 years despite the situation we're in, as we had promised. The next item I have is Equity Roundtable. And I've actually received several emails from students and community members over the past couple of weeks, especially when we had the marches and demonstrations right here in town, that a lot of questions regarding the school district, Medina City Schools, and how we handle equity issues within the district, and making sure that we are being proactive in the district in terms of equity issues. And I can tell you, for me as a superintendent and as a school system, these can be challenging topics because we do demand equity across the board, but at the same time, we balance a lot of different viewpoints on what that means with the makeup of our community, because we do represent everybody in our community. So part of making sure we have a broader representation, and this was actually initiated by one of our graduating seniors, we are looking at implementing an equity roundtable, which would start this summer and be something that we would continue to do as we move forward. It would include students, graduates, administrators, some teachers. We're just in the process of getting that together. But the discussion we would have is, what are the expectations surrounding equity in Medina City Schools, and making sure that we're getting feedback from other people as we make decisions and start heading in various directions in regards to equity. Because we want to make sure that all of our students are having the best experience they can, and everybody has the same opportunity to have the best kind of experience as well. When we met with the student, where this kind of generated from, we did share out a lot of the things that we're already doing that I think a lot of people don't realize, either because we haven't totally publicly shared it out yet, or because it was embedded within some other programming that we are doing. But this past school year, equity has been one of the major topics that we've been discussing as an administrative team. And this relates to the work that we've been doing with Battelle. But it's looking at all kinds of equity across the district. So I'm not just talking about race, I'm talking about social economics, I'm talking about the whole gamut of equity as it relates to access to education. I think this has become more of a hot topic recently because of the online learning and students' access to technology or to the internet. So I feel like we were already in a solid place, at least administratively, where we have been having those discussions this past school year. And we were starting to have those discussions with our teacher leaders at the building level as well. This equity piece totally relates to the portrait of a graduate, which we introduced at the end of the school year. Because when you start talking about, well, what are expectations for students graduating from Medina City schools, those are expectations that would be written right within that portrait of a graduate, which is going to be generated working collaboratively. So we were in the beginning steps of actually putting documentation available to address equity. And I think expanding this conversation is important. And I've actually had a couple community members ask me why I haven't made a public statement with all that's been going on in society. And I can tell you that is something I have thought about. I did share with these couple individuals that, my position sometimes it's challenged because I do see myself as representing the whole community. No matter what my personal beliefs or views are. I think we all can agree that we want a district that's equitable to all students. But what I had shared with them as well, that what we were trying to do, or where my mind frame was, is trying to walk the talk rather than just talk. So what we've been working on is some proactive approaches that we can implement to address these issues in the district. And like I said, this is very preliminary stages. We're in the process of getting that together. Dr. Kwolek and I have kind of taken that bull by the horns and working with our students. And I think we're going to have a lot of student leadership and graduate leadership as we move forward with this. The next item that I have to share is on the Reset Restart. Reset Restart is a document that the Ohio Department of Education, the State Department, as well as the Health Department is supposed to be releasing in order to help districts plan for the coming fall. That document was set to release approximately a week or two ago, and they chose not to release the document at the time because after meetings, the governor's meetings with school districts, there was a feeling that some things needed to be better addressed within that document before it went out. Once we received that document, we are going to be working through that, and that document is going to help us in developing what the fall looks like. And not just with what school looks like in terms of blended or online, but even how we function within the school building with our students back. So social distancing, sanitizing our facilities, the amount of students that can be in the facilities. So we do have a district committee that we put together that's going to be working through this document, and we're going to be developing a general framework for the district in terms of our facilities as it relates to COVID-19. And then we'll be working with individual buildings to address the individual facilities because they're all different and get the feedback at the building level. We felt like it was important to first have something that's a district-wide expectation before we went and started looking at the individual buildings. But hopefully that document will be received from the state soon, and hopefully it'll provide us some guidance while at the same time allowing us some flexibility in meeting the needs of Medina City schools. Number 4 is district calendar for 2021. And I don't really have much specific information to share with this other than letting people know that we are having conversations about the district calendar and some potential adjustments that we could make to that district calendar to try and be proactive with whatever may or may not happen with COVID-19. Some of those discussions have surrounded the potential of moving our start date back to allow for more time for COVID to clear up, as well as a need that we have to work with staff to prepare our staff for the fall with the new procedures that are going to be in place due to COVID, whether we have students fully back or not. The other piece that we've been discussing is how we handle that winter period when it's flu season or when we have a lot of families traveling for Thanksgiving. And we're trying to talk through what could be some possibilities as well. And like I said, I don't have anything specific to share right now with the community, but I do anticipate in the coming weeks that we will. And as soon as we have that information available, we are going to make it available to our parents. We do recognize the need for them to coordinate their calendars in terms of what the school year is going to be looking like. I also want to mention that if we do present any changes to the board for approval, that we're just looking at 2021 because of the current circumstances that we're in. The next item is July board meetings, and this one I am going to need some feedback from board members. Typically in July, we make some adjustments with our meetings, either canceling meetings or moving them within the month. Usually July is one of our slower months as a school district before things get crazy hectic in August. I am recommending to the board that we go ahead and have 2 meetings in July. I think with the amount of things that are going on in regards to making decisions about what the fall is going to look like, district calendars, the hiring components, I think it would be a good idea for us to continue to have 2 meetings in July, even though we typically don't do that, again, because of the decisions that have to be made. What I am recommending, and this is through discussion that Dave Chambers and I had with Val and Rob the end of last week, but pushing back those meetings, and we'd be looking at July 13th and July 27th. So July 13th would potentially be the work session, and then July 27th, the regular meeting. The end of the July meeting was particularly important because when the new Senate bill was released, they did have a timeline within there in terms of presenting information to boards of education and approving online learning or blended learning as a potential. It doesn't mean you're locking into it, but as a potential for next year in order for those to count as academic hours. And I just received information today that timeline has actually been extended, which I was happy to hear. And as of now, I'm not sure whether a formal resolution needs to be passed by the board or not, but we'll work that through with legal counsel. I do know that there is some documentation that we're going to have to submit to the state. And the communication I received today, which has come through legal counsel through the Alliance, which we're a part of, is to go ahead and submit that to the state, even if we end up not doing a blended model in the fall, simply so we have the flexibility, not knowing what the fall will bring. So I just want to make sure with the board that those 2 dates I shared, we're going to work for everybody. The other piece with the July dates is I was going to recommend that we start phasing back to more of a regular board meeting format. And I say more of a regular because we're still not going to be in a position, I don't anticipate, where we're going to be able to have a large amount of people at the meeting. So what I was looking at for the work session is the board and essential administrators with social distancing at the meeting. And we would still make the meeting available to the public, just like we're doing right now. But the board and essential administrators would be together in the room. And we would allow for questions electronically, like we're doing now with the community. And then the goal would hopefully be to be able to, as things loosen up, take a phase 2 at the end of July. And then, of course, into August, in terms of bringing media back into those meetings and even the public. And we're discussing all kinds of avenues where that could happen, whether it's bringing the public in virtually or whether it's having the public sign up to attend in advance so that we can prepare the facility for whoever's going to be at that meeting as well. So we're still working through some of those details, but I did want the board to know that it's my recommendation to begin that transition next month and to do it in a phased format.
Erin, I think everything that you presented is solid, and I definitely look forward to all of us getting back together. While the video is great, it certainly does not replace, just like with our students in the classrooms, there is no replacement for that in-person meeting. So thank you.
Yep. And the last discussion item I have, and this is a really important one.
Erin, it's Chris. Could I add something just really quickly? So if we have any staffing needs, I just want to make sure you and the board are okay with adding a meeting that would need to be by July 10th if we have any staffing.
Are you saying instead of the July 13th or in addition to the
No,
July 13th?
Erin can answer that, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I know Erin's aware.
Yeah, what Chris is referring to is the July 10th deadline for teachers to get out of current teaching contracts to accept one from another district. And the answer to that is I think we can call an emergency meeting for the purposes of personnel if we need to. I'm not sure whether we're going to need to do that or not. I know the board in the past has allowed me some authorization to sign off. Obviously, it's not official till the board approves, but to give potential incoming employees a sense of security in working with them. Of course, if I was going to do that, I would have conversation with Valerie and Rob before that, because I wouldn't want to put somebody in a position where they're going out of another contract to come with us, and then it's something the board doesn't feel comfortable with. The other piece is no action has been taken, but there has been conversation at the state level about potentially adjusting that contractual date for some additional flexibility for districts. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but it has been discussion. From my point of view, I can see it both ways. It could create some flexibility when you're hiring, but it could also hurt you if you have somebody who's looking at leaving. So, yeah, I think a special meeting, if we needed one, we would let you know.
If I could interject with that, maybe if we had to do the July 10th, we'd consider possibly 9 a.m. or something on that Friday, since it would just be a 5-minute meeting, a quick Zoom. Okay, thanks.
I agree. I think that makes sense. And I think it would make sense to do it electronically so that people could come into it at 9 a.m., where obviously that wouldn't be easy. But like I said, it would simply be for personnel.
I also just want to make sure that the 13th and 27th work for everyone, to make sure that we do have a quorum of board members. Those dates are fine for me.
Yes, the dates are fine for me too.
Dates are great for me too.
Yeah, they work for me too. Thanks. Ron? He's muted.
He's shaking yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, yes, I'm good on that.
Okay.
All Our community chat, which is scheduled for tomorrow at 6 o'clock. We have made the decision to change the format of the community chat. And I just sent out a communication to our parents early this afternoon in regards to that. And the reason why is because the response that we've gotten has been huge. Google Meets like this, which is what we were going to do, permits 250 participants. When I sent out the communication last week to our parents, within 10 minutes, there were over 250 people signed up to do it. And I think we currently have over 1,200 people signed up to do it. So rather than holding 6 different meetings and potentially having some variation just because they're different meetings in the message, we've decided to change the format. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a panel discussion where we're going to be presenting information about the upcoming school year and some of the things that we've been working on this summer and are going to continue to be working on. That panel is going to include myself, Dr. Kwolek, Assistant Superintendent, Tina Cassidy, our Director of Curriculum, Mina, our Director of Pupil Services, as well as our board president, Mrs. Pavlik. And we're going to broadcast that panel live under different types of social media, including Facebook, as well as YouTube. We've developed 3 modes for parents to interact and participate. One is an email address, which I included in the email today, that they'll be able to email questions. The other one is through chat, through the modes of social media. So we're going to be monitoring questions as they come in. And to give an example of what it's going to feel like, it's going to be very similar to when I've done the Facebook Lives, where I've had a very high participation and a lot of questions when I've held those, only we're even expanding it to more modes of social media and more avenues for people to engage and communicate. If it's anything like my Facebook Lives have been, we're going to get a lot more questions than we can ever answer. So we are going to have a team, and we're going to be working together to try and work through those questions and answer the most popular ones. We will be making an effort to answer every question, even if it's not in the hour time slot that we have set for that meeting. The other thing that I wanted to share, and I just heard a little bit of rumblings about this in the community, that there's the thought that we're going to be revealing our plans for the fall at this meeting. And I want to make clear that that is not what we're doing. We are going to be sharing ideas for the fall, and the intent is to get feedback. So when we do roll out what the fall is going to look like, that's going to be in a more formal format for our parents than through an open chat. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear before we head into tomorrow evening.
Aaron, I apologize if I missed this. My sound went out for a minute, but all those questions, will you then compile an FAQ for the website for those who maybe are unable to view or attend?
We will, and we're also going to make the panel chat available on our website and our YouTube page so that parents can access and watch that as well.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Sable, for all of that. It just shows that what a wonderful community Medina is. The response time, over 1,200 total signed up. So I'm really excited to take part in that. Thank you.
Hey, Val, I had a question for Aaron.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yep.
So on that equity roundtable, is the plan to include the resource officers, or can you do that?
We could. We're still working through those details.
Okay.
One of the things that was really brought up, though, is having people part of that directly interact with the students and are impactful on students every day, which, of course, a resource officer is. So, yeah, we're talking about that.
Okay. Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments on the superintendent communications? No? Okay. At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Chambers for the treasurer's communications.
This will be good for you. The district bank balance decreased by $2.8 million in May. It went to $78.7 million. This is $1.9 million below last year at this time. The general fund revenues were above last May by $1.4 million. All funding sources, except for the state foundation, of which we receive state funding, of which they cut, account for this increase. The general fund expenditures were above last May by $2.8 million. Personnel service, benefits, purchase services, capital outlay, and transfers and advances contribute to this increase, which relates to the strategic plan and summer property improvements. We had our sales tax fund balance go down to $3.6 million. The district spent approximately $473,000 in May, and the largest was on interest for our COPS funds, which pertain to both Waite and Northrop buildings. The Recreation Center capital fund balance is down to $199,000. The district spent roughly $6,000 in May. The district received $69,000 in investment income for May. The total collection for the current fiscal year is approximately $342,000 below the total collected for all of last year. And the total is also approximately $36,000 above the total collected in all of fiscal years 15, 16, and 17. The district has a general fund true days cash estimated to be 251 days. This is down from April by 10 days and below last year by 21 days. Any questions? Okay. Second item here, we have a number of items that are going to be presented to the board here for the closing of the fiscal year. Our fiscal year closes on June 30th. As Aaron said, we are anticipating monies to be withheld from us by the state as opposed to them giving us monies bi-weekly. We are looking at another roughly, I believe it's near $1 million here just in this month being withheld. We have fund-to-fund transfers. We have a return of advance from our cafeteria fund. We advanced them last year. They're returning it this year. We have advances going out to our cafeteria fund, which has not collected money since, I believe it was March 12th or March 13th. We also have advances going out to our title funds. And then we have our final appropriations for the fiscal year itself. As I say, all of this is going to be presented here, and it's just going to be another fun ending to the fiscal year. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Are there any board communications?
I have one. Well, I have a question first. I was going to ask Mr. Chambers. Finance committee meets on Wednesday. Is that right? Finance committee? Dave?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right, Wednesday. Okay. My communication is rec center's open. People have been working out at the rec center. They opened on June 1st. I think the staff has done a great job at the rec center, keeping everybody safe and moving the equipment around to make sure they're distant and sanitized. So I give the city a lot of credit for doing that. And then the rec center advisory board will meet this Thursday at 7:30. Just want to let everybody know it's moving forward. So thank you.
I will go. Curriculum committee met and the policy committee has met. The policy committee will be meeting again. We aim to have some policies for a first reading to the board at the July board meeting. I also would just like to acknowledge, we always talk about what great students we have in our district, and they do continue to go on and become great graduates and alum and members of our community. With the two of them recently, working with Mr. Sable for the Equity Roundtable, as well as another one, organizing a walk in Medina last weekend. And I think it's great. We need to acknowledge them and the contributions they're making to our community. And it's important that we all reflect on our behaviors and actions to see what we can do to make things better for everyone and to look at everyone as a human being. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other board communication?
Just real quick, I got to yesterday attend the Career Center's, not their graduate, it's not called a graduation, but when they give out their passport and have all the students that are graduating go through that process. And they did a drive-through at the Career Center, and Mr. Chrisman put that together, and their whole staff was involved with it. But we were over there and got to see almost 400 students drive through with their families. And it was a neat experience, and it was unique. And I think Medina did a great job with its graduation. And I know Valerie, you spent, I think, the better part of those 3 days, and Aaron and Chris and others, and Amy putting it together, and Jeff, all the staff that did the work. So Medina did a great job in its graduation, and the Career Center had a really unique graduation over there. And they had the cars going through at different times and had two different hour-and-a-half windows for the cars to show up. And we saw people in RVs with their kids. We saw rented limos with kids and pickup trucks with kids in the back. And so it was quite a fun experience to see them all come through. So I got to represent Medina doing that. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
I got some real quick. To further what Rob said, I had the opportunity to watch some of the commencement as well, and some of the speeches. And in addition to that, I've also had the opportunity to see what some of the other school districts have done in Ohio. And I think Medina should be really proud of what we could do despite the current restrictions. We did quite a bit compared to what some other districts were doing, so thank you. I also wanted to say, just share that in light of the revenue reductions, I had voiced some concerns with Valerie over the weekend about the amount of money we're spending or approving to spend in the last month and especially tonight. So I was real pleased to see that Aaron and the staff are looking really close at the budget and identifying areas for reductions. And I'm hopeful that we'll continue to scrutinize this issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Okay.
I had a question for you.
Yes.
There was talk that we were still possibly going to hold an in-person graduation, which one of the dates mentioned was August 1st. Is that still going to happen, possibly, or no? None of these. That was at least the earliest.
It's still on our calendar. We don't know yet whether it's going to happen or not. It's going to depend upon the parameters of how many people can gather and what gathering looks like. The other piece that we discussed as well is sending out a survey to our seniors prior to that to see if any of them at this point even want to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
We have very positive feedback from the graduation from families.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I would agree with you, Aaron. The feedback that I heard all day long, those 3 days were, because it really truly felt like an in-person graduation for them, getting to walk across the stage and then getting silly and goofy, having their pictures taken. So it'll be interesting to see the results of that. But I think it was definitely great closure for our seniors, for our graduating class.
I have one more thing I wanted to add real quick. As we talk about meeting again as a board, I know, I believe right now we're still limited to 10 individuals per the governor's guidance on who can meet. As that begins to open up and we do include the public, I think it's important that if we're requiring face masks or temperature checks upon entering our facilities, that we make sure that we communicate that well in advance to anyone who is attending that meeting so that they know what to expect.
All right. At this time, we'll move to the action items of the treasurer. I'd like to ask for a motion.
I'll make the motion. We approve the action items for the treasurer.
I don't believe that we have gone over the action items for the treasurer yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Item number 1, treasurer's reports. We're recommended that the Board of Education approve the May 20 treasurer's report. Item number 2, fund-to-fund transfers. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers. We have transfers coming out of the general fund going into the uniform school supply accounts. Have transfers coming from the principal's fund going into the field trip accounts, and transfers from the sales tax fund going to debt service and the PI fund. Item number 3, return of advances to funds. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following return of advances of funds. We have a return of advance coming from the cafeteria fund to the treasury, or to the general treasury. We have advances. Item number 4. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following advances of funds. We have general fund advancing out to the cafeteria fund and all of our title funds. The title funds we have to make clear and in the black before the end of the year. And if you recall, title funds are all reimbursement funds from the state. So we basically have to give them money and then be reimbursed from the state, and then you'll see return of advances come August. We have our final appropriations. It is recommended the Board of Education approve final appropriations for fiscal years 19 and 20. We have resolution for school bus lease purchase. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the treasurer to enter into a lease purchase agreement with Huntington Public Capital Corporation for the lease and purchase of school buses. If you recall, back in January, you allowed the Transportation Department to purchase school buses. This is just getting the financing and prepared for the purchase itself. Item number 7, 5 cast analytic index service contract. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the Forecast 5 analytics service contract for the year 2021 in the amount of $17,405. And finally, item number 8, proposal, commercial insurance. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the commercial insurance proposal between Medina City School District and Todd Associates for the 2021 year. This is for the property, fleet, and liability insurance of the district. Do you have any questions?
I do have a couple of questions and a comment. I guess I got out of order when Dave, when you were talking about some of these things in the previous treasurer's communications, so we're good. I just want to comment on or ask about the school bus lease. We did approve that purchase back in January, and I took a look back there and I saw where 6 of those buses have almost 150,000 miles on them. Another two are pushing 100,000. This was one of the questions that Mr. Hilberg had asked me about.
Mrs. Pavlik, I apologize for interrupting, but I think we need to take action before we ask our comments or questions. So we have to make a motion to approve the action items and then ask our questions.
Well, Dave had asked if there were any questions.
I know, but I believe our bylaws and procedures state that we take action, make a motion, have a second, and then have our board questions.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and make the motion?
I will make a motion to accept the treasurer's action items.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. So again, back to the buses, two of them are pushing 100,000 miles. And then again, the significant, there were four that were specially equipped for the special education students with disabilities. And again, I remember when this was being presented to us back in January, just the wear and tear that are put on these buses on a regular day. So it is definitely a need for the district. Mr. Chambers, on number 7, the forecast 5, I noticed a discount for the 5 cost plus line item, but not the third item listed on there. It looked like we were getting a discount on the first line item.
Yeah,
Can you explain?
that's the total discount. The discount is actually going through Ohio's, Ohio Association of School Business Officials, OASBO. So that's the total discount. They don't split it up amongst the different items itself. So there's,
Okay,
go
ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so it's just a percentage itself off the total cost, that's all.
Okay, and this is needed because our current forecasting software vendor has gone out of business,
That's correct.
And so that software. Oh,
They
go ahead.
actually were taken over by Forecast 5.
Okay, I got it. They were bought out. So, and we will be getting an updated version with all the bells and whistles, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and there's 3 seats on those licenses. Is that how am I reading that correctly?
There's 3 types of service. Is that what you're asking?
Well, typically they're referred to like as seats. You know, you get so many seats per license.
There's 2 seats per.
2 seats per, okay. And then you yourself use that as well as?
It'll be myself and Jeannie Blankenship, my assistant.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying that. And then my last question I had was, with the commercial insurance, has this type of proposal been presented to the board in the past? Or I remember in our agenda meeting, we were discussing this. Could you give a little bit more background on that?
Well, I can tell you this. We've had a number of people involved in this from the beginning. This year has been somewhat of a different year, a challenging year for this. Has any commercial insurance been presented to the board in the past? I could only answer for last year. The answer was no. This year, we're presenting it because obviously you see the cost on there. And I believe that the board should be looking at items of this magnitude in order to approve it or not. So.
Okay, absolutely. I agree completely with you. Thank you very much for that.
Yep.
Are there, do any of the other board members have questions?
How much of an increase is that on that insurance?
What was that, Brian?
How much of an increase is that on that policy?
It was roughly 17,000. And of the 17,000, 6,000 was for property increase and 8,000 was for liability increase. And we had a little bit, I believe, a little bit of the increase on the fleet itself.
Thank you.
Dave, this isn't a change of carriers, right? It's just the same company that we're using?
It's the same company, yes. It's through 3 different insurance companies. Todd Associates is the broker through the Ohio Schools Council. We've used the Ohio Schools Council for better rates on our insurance for a number of years now.
Okay, and like Brian asked, so that 281, that's 17,000 more than last year?
Yes.
Last year, okay. Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Okay. I'll ask for public comment at this time. Amy, if you can confirm. No? Okay. Hearing no public comment, Mr. Chambers, will you call roll?
Yes. Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Back to Superintendent, Mr. Sable.
Donations, it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to the Medina City Schools. A couple things I want to point out here. The first is the $4,500 donation from the Blake PTO. I definitely want to thank all of our PTOs. They're part of the reason that helps us be fiscally conservative, because they support us in so many ways that directly impact our students. Secondly, I wanted to share that there's a whole list of donations for the high school pantry. This is food that is kept to provide to students that are in need. I think we've talked about the pantry before at board meetings, but definitely wanted to point out the generous donation from the class of 77. And I know these donations are going to help that pantry be able to continue to support students through the summer in these difficult times. The second item, and this might be the most important one here on the agenda tonight, it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the list of seniors of the class of 2020 who have fulfilled and met all of the requirements for the state of Ohio and the Medina City Schools for graduation. So upon board approval, our students will officially be graduates. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution membership in Alliance for High Quality Education for the 2021 school year. The Alliance has been a very important organization to the district, especially over the course of the last several months. The Alliance is a collaboration of high-performing districts and wealthier districts from across the state of Ohio. They have been a major advocate and voice for us as we work through these COVID issues, requirements, and school in the fall. I have been having weekly meetings with the Alliance, as well as superintendents across the state, to collaborate with what has been our challenges. In addition to that, the Alliance regularly meets with state leadership, the governor, as well as legislators, to make sure that they're aware of how some of the mandates and things that are being put into place are impacting districts. Number 4, it is recommended that the Board of Education review for the second time with possible adoption the following revised bylaws. These bylaws have gone through our committee. In addition to that, these were presented for discussion at our work session because they're relevant to organizational meetings. Number 5 is textbook adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the following textbook for the 2021 school year. And this is for the anatomy physiology course that's going to be taught at the high school. This replaces environmental science and does not require any additional staffing. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Medina County Career Center Satellite Program Standards and Maintenance Agreement between the Medina County Career Center and the Medina City School District for the Medina County Career Center to provide educational services, specifically design and modeling and automation and robotics and biotech for students at Claggett Middle School, AI Root Middle School, and Medina High School for the 2021 school year. This is related to the projects that we implemented in the past couple of years, where we collaborate with the Career Center to actually help pay for staff so that we can put these career-based programs in our middle school as well as our high school. You see this on an annual basis as these programs continue. Number 7 is Blackboard. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the renewal of the agreement between Blackboard and the Medina City School District for the website, mobile app, social media manager, and notification system at an annual rate of $25,000 commencing on July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. And I spoke a little bit to this at the beginning of the meeting. But there is a cost savings here. I think I'd informed the board late last week that it was going to be around $1,000, and it actually ends up being around $4,500 per year. And again, that's due to negotiations as well as a reduction in features on the website that weren't commonly used or non-essential. Number 8, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following extended school year services for the summer of 2020 and service agreements for the 2021 school year. These services are all as mandated per student's individual educational plan. Number 9, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for 2021 school year. Again, these are all educational services per students' IEPs that we are mandated to provide as a school district. And number 10, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 2021 school year. And this is to provide services with water treatment. The top one is for the whole district except for Heritage and the high school. And then the bottom is for the cooling tower and hot water loop chill loop over at the high school. And number 11, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 2021 school year with extended school year services if needed for the summer of 2021. So at this time of year, you see a lot of service agreements on here for summer and extended year services, which is normal. And these come as I identified through students' individual educational plans. I do want to point out that many of these are up to, dependent on the services that are required for students. Number 12, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payments to Courtney London and Jennifer Wilder in the amount of $320 from the University of Akron for being cooperating teachers for University of Akron student teachers during the spring semester of 2020. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payment to Patricia Halton in the amount of $100 from Ashland University for being a cooperating teacher for Ashland University student teacher during the spring of 2020. And then 14, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payment to Faith Soria in the amount of $300 from Cleveland State for being a cooperating teacher for a Cleveland State student teacher during the spring semester of 2020. And the last is personnel. It is recommended to the Board of Education that you approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion of all hiring information. I do want to point out that there are 5 teachers on the agenda being recommended for hire. None of these are new positions. These are all to replace individuals that have retired and or are leaving the district and are thus considered essential positions. In addition, we are running the expanded virtual summer school this year, and that is in an effort to help keep our students up to speed and up to snuff, especially with what they've all been through the course of the spring. So I am also recommending teachers to teach this virtual summer school to work with the students that have signed up. And I also want to point out that we do have, besides the summer school, we do have activities posted on our website for families who chose not to pay and participate in the summer school that they can complete to extend their academics as well. So we're trying to be very conscious of that this summer. And the last thing I want to point out on here is administrative substitutes. This is similar to teaching substitutes. I think it's important to note that it's important that we have these people board approved so they're available to us. But when an administrator is out, we very rarely get a substitute for that individual. Any questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the superintendent's action items.
I'll second. Okay, discussion from the board as well as questions?
I just wanted to ask Aaron, the contract with Zinkin, that's not because we have a problem. Is that just preventative with the water?
It's maintenance, annual maintenance.
Annual maintenance, okay. And I just wanted to add, just want to congratulate our seniors. Job well done. And congratulate Bobby Foy on her retirement effective in October for all of her years of service. Thank you, Bobby.
She's a big loss.
She is, yeah, she is. So, thank you.
For sure. Aaron, the agreement with Blackboard, I'm just a little bit, because in the previous communications, you stated that Google Classroom was replacing Blackboard. So what are we still doing with Blackboard?
Yeah, Blackboard, we have multiple contracts with Blackboard. Blackboard also houses our website and the structure of our website. So it's a completely different contract. They maintain our website for us. They don't put the information on it. We handle that. But in terms of the layout, the organization, the communication apps, the all calls, those kind of things are all Blackboard as well.
Okay, thank you. And what happens if we see a decrease in enrollment? Because I noticed when I looked at that, it has over 6,000, which I would imagine is what the students, the student count. What happens if we see a decrease in enrollment? Will we receive a refund?
In terms of, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, if you look at the attachment, it has Okay, let me pull it up here real quick.
Yeah, our cost for Blackboard, Aaron, is based on our per pupil. But they have to pick a point in time, Val, and bill us. So we don't get billed more if it goes up. And Ryan, you can jump in, but we don't get billed less if it goes down. So they just have to pay. A lot of our purchases in technology are based on that. So you don't get billed more if our enrollment were to go up, and you don't get billed less if it goes down.
Okay, so that quantity, that 6929, that's our student enrollment right now, or as of this date, is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Ryan, do they use our October ADM? I mean, I know that's not a thing anymore, but did you just pick a point in time?
Maybe they must have, because that number's low.
Yeah. So I bet it doesn't include preschool. I mean, it's Amy's jumping.
It does not. No, it doesn't. So that is a number that was picked at a point in time at some point last year. And I didn't really change it with them. Just simply because, just for that reason, we don't know if our enrollment's going to go up or down. So it's kind of an average number.
Okay.
But it is per pupil cost.
Okay, so we don't get a refund, but we don't get billed if we go over.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
All
So
right.
that number is good for 3 years. So at the end of the 3 years, then we need to relook at that again.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Over time, Val, that Blackboard has purchased a lot of different services. So Parent Link was one, and that's the communication piece that Aaron was talking about. And there's also the web app is another one that's in this quote that is a Blackboard utility for parents that parents use. So there's multiple pieces that are bundled together with that web page. But the student side of it is what we're moving to Google Classroom.
Okay, all right, I understand. Thank you, Ryan. Aaron, I had another question on the on section or subject 8. I noticed that 2 of the providers are out of state. In particular, the Dyslexia Coach of New Jersey, LLC. Is there no in-state provider or local provider that could provide those services?
I'm actually going to turn to Dr. Kwolek or Mrs. Pizika to answer that question.
Sure, I'll hop in here. So looking for the level of certification that was required was pretty difficult to find somebody in state. The nice thing about this is a service that's being offered virtually, so we don't need to pay for any travel. And the cost per hour is pretty commensurate to anything we would be able to find locally as well, should we have had somebody with that certification in the area.
Oh, okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. So we kind of get we get a break on any travel reimbursements on that. And then the Bridges consultant, I noticed they were out of state as well, but I know that the Bridges is something that we implemented. And again, just asking if there weren't any local consultants that could have provided that.
There were not. Again, this is pretty similar to the previous question that you had. This is somebody who's actually been working with our district. We meet with them virtually. I think they did come in for some training at the beginning of Bridges implementation, but again, this is somebody that we don't need to pay travel costs for.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I believe that is all of the questions that I had. Again, Ron, I'm glad you congratulated Bobby Foy on her retirement. She's definitely going to be somebody who is going to be missed. And maybe we could do a virtual round of applause for our class of 2020. Once we approve them, should we call roll and then clap? But I think it's a tremendous accomplishment.
Can I jump in real quick if you don't mind?
Sure.
Just Ron brought it to my attention when he brought up Bobby, and then I got a text from Mr. Shields that I missed the retirements, which usually I say a few words. So I just wanted to add, we do have 2 retirements that are on the agenda tonight. Linda McWilliams is one of them, and she's a heritage paraprofessional, and she's retiring from Medina City Schools with 24 years of service effective September 1st, 2020. Linda began working for the school district in the high school kitchen and then became a paraprofessional working at Root Middle School, the detention center, Ella Canavan, and most recently over at Heritage. Linda has worked with our intensive needs students and does a wonderful job with students. She is joining her husband, Mark, a retired Medina City School repairman, in his retirement and plans to spend lots of time with their grandchildren. And Bobby Foy, Medina High School art teacher Bobby Foy, will be retiring in the fall, having completed 35 years in education. Bobby is in her 22nd year with Medina. Before moving to teach at Medina High School, Bobby taught at Ella Canavan. Her Dale Julie inspired hanging sculpture made by her Canavan students is still today the centerpiece of the Canavan Media Center. Bobby moved to high school when the former department chair retired. Bobby has served as department chair for the CDC for K-12 art. She's the driving force each year behind Art 111, the AP art program, and scholarships for art students. She is a passionate advocate for the district's art program and for her students. Bobby has devoted countless hours to the district in many ways outside of teaching art over her time working in Medina. She has also been known to dumpster dive, as Bobby never met any item that could not be recycled and used in a student art lesson. Best wishes to Bobby, and thank you to her for her services to the district. I can tell you in my 4 years with the district, it was obvious from the get-go what kind of impact she not only has on her art classes, but district-wide as well, whether it's her involvement in outside activities and supporting students, or the fact that she was nominated as the County Teacher of the Year just a year or 2 ago. She's an outstanding educator and will be missed. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you. All right. Amy, are there any public comments on any of the superintendent items?
There are none.
Okay. Hearing none. Mr. Chambers, will you call roll?
Ms. Parkhurst. Okay, Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm back, Mr. Chambers. I had lost connection. Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sable, you have one more action item.
And the final action item for tonight is another stipend payment. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payment to Tyler Skidmore in the amount of $150 from Cleveland State University for being a cooperating teacher for a Cleveland State University student teacher during the spring semester of 2020.
I'll make a motion. We approve action item H.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Public comment? Hearing none. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Abstain.
Thank you.
I believe, Aaron, I take on action item I.
Yes.
Okay. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the treasurer's contract for a 5-year term with provisions as listed in the attached public document. I would like to make a motion to approve this action item.
Second.
Okay. I'd like to state that I am comfortable that the contract negotiated for Mr. Chambers is fair for both the district and Mr. Chambers. It is important to have, particularly in these uncertain times, a treasurer who is solid and steady. Throughout the course of his last two contracts, Mr. Chambers has restructured and reorganized the treasurer's office to become highly efficient. As a direct result, the district has been recognized by the state auditor's office for clean audits these past 2 years. The board desires Mr. Chambers to continue that streak, and it is a primary objective moving forward. Mr. Chambers has provided a tremendous service to the district by increasing revenue via sound investments. When he was hired in 2014, the board gave Mr. Chambers approval to expand our investment portfolio. Up until that point, the district had only earned approximately $156,000 in investments. Through May 31st of this year, the district has earned over $5.2 million. While we may not see that kind of return on our investments in the near future, it is important to have someone who can assist us in maximizing that potential. The board wishes to retain the individual who, with financial prudence and commitment to our community, Mr. Chambers has been these past 6 years. Is there any other comments from the board members?
Just like to say that we're glad to have Mr. Chambers, and we're looking forward to having him give us financial direction for the next 5 years. So thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Any other comment from the board?
Val, I just wanted to also just note that I agree with everything you said, and Rob as well. And I just want to thank Mr. Chambers for his years of service. And Mr. Chambers, you've taught me a lot about school finance. So I appreciate that, because it is such a complicated thing. I mean, that's the only word I could come to grips with. And even after I'm on my second term, I'm still learning school finance. So that's how contentious of a subject it is. But I appreciate you being there and answering all my questions, and all the board members as well. So thank you. And also, we were under a deadline. His contract expires like next month, so we have to get this done. Mm-hmm. Right. So thank you, Mr. Chambers.
I just want to say, Ron, that I'm still learning about school finance too.
Dave, after 25 years in public education, 25 years, you know, that's a quarter of a century, right? I said to throw that in. Yeah, I bet.
That's a tough subject. Wow. But thank you. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. Amy, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Hearing none. Mr. Chambers, will you call roll call?
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Thank you all.
We've reached this point of public participation. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Amy, are there any public participants?
No participants.
Okay.
It's a quiet night.
All right. At this time, I would like to make a motion for executive session to consider the employment, compensation of a public employee or official, and to preparation for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. There will be no action taken when we return. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
And we will also be including Chris Qualick and Jim Shields in executive session. And again, there will be no action taken afterwards.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Congratulations to our 2020 graduates.
Yes, congratulations. Yay.
Yay. Thank you.